Good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to welcome you to the Poulsbo City Council meeting for July 2nd, 2025. Poulsbo is committed to being a welcoming, diverse, and equitable community where all people can access tools and opportunities to improve their quality of life, allowing them to reach their full potential. During its meetings, the Poulsbo City Council will use this lens to inclusively view its discussions and actions. And I'm going to read the land acknowledgement for Ms. Crowe, who couldn't make it this evening. Poulsbo is located on the ancestral lands of the indigenous Suquamish people, for whom this place is known as Tuktuklats, or the land of the vine maples. Every part of this soil is sacred in the estimation of my people. Every hillside, every valley, every plain and grove has been hallowed by some sad or happy event in days long vanished. That's Chief Seattle in 1854. And with that, would you all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The next thing is to review and approve the agenda. We have a couple additions. We have an addition to the workshop. It's about the ADU impact fee discount, which is our ADU program that's coming forward. We're going to discuss the impact fees and general facilities charges, and it will be added to the last item on the workshop agenda. And we also have to add an executive session at the end of the meeting regarding regarding real estate matters, and it's pursuant to RCW 4230-1101B. It'll be in the second floor conference room, about 15 minutes, and we will adjourn directly out of the executive session. With that, I have a motion to approve the agenda as amended.
Mayor, I move to approve the agenda as amended.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Mr. McVeigh.
McVeigh, aye.
Eckert, aye. Stern, aye.
Lived all aye.
Tigger, aye. Newell, aye.
Thank you, council. Now we're on to public comment. If you have comment for the council, please step to the podium. You have 3 minutes and state your name for the record. Go ahead.
My name is Michael Fitzpatrick. Good evening, Mayor, council members, Rob. I'd like to give an appreciative comment to the city followed by a suggestion. My comment is to speak a word of gratitude to the council and to the city staff and our engineers for the excellent work y'all have done in improving our sidewalks and intersections with fresh concrete corners and ADA ramps as part of the ADA transition plan. In some cases, you have even performed some mild traffic realignment, like the intersection near where I live at 4th and Iverson. Infrastructure is something we all take for granted, but it is so important to the smooth functioning of city life. And by improving our intersections and sidewalks, our city is more accessible and more enjoyable, not only today, but hopefully for years to come. To ensure this, I'd like to make a suggestion, though it might just be a solicitation for information from the council or later from the city engineer. My suggestion pertains to your maintenance schedule for street repair. While you updated the intersection corners and even blended them in with some lovely asphalt patches, the intersections themselves have not yet been repaved. As a child of a Department of Transportation superintendent, I know that the elements can wreak havoc on asphalt and concrete if they are not properly sealed. These revamped ADA corners at our intersections look great, but if you look at an intersection like this one right outside City Hall at Iverson and 3rd, you will see that the main body of the intersection has crumbling asphalt full of cracks. When the rains come, the water goes under the road through those cracks, and those beautiful asphalt patches and concrete corners will see their shelf life become a half-life. The council and the city might already be on top of this, but if not, I would strongly encourage the city to revisit their street repair schedule to ensure that top priority is given to grinding out and repaving those intersections in their entirety to ensure that these ADA transition plan improvements last for years to come. I thank you for your time.
Thank you. Comments for the council? Any other public comments this evening? Okay, seeing and hearing none, we're going to go on to mayor's reports and council comments. Mr. McVeigh, how are you?
I'm good. Thank you, Mayor. Good evening to our citizens and to everyone who is in the chambers tonight or maybe watching us online or on Comcast. A couple things. Just wanted to recognize Greg Enright in the Cultural Foundation Northwest for the excellent Makers Fair we had downtown this weekend. Lots of people, lots of great goods. This is the second year of the Makers Fair, and it appears to be continuing to grow. And I think it's been a great addition to our downtown and to our summer festival schedule. I also want to thank the city for supporting those of us who attended last week's Association of Washington Cities conference. Myself, Mr. Stern, Mr. Eckert, Rob Gelder, and Pam Crowe attended the conference in the Tri-Cities. I found it very worthwhile, some great sessions. I'm coming back with some good ideas that I will warn my colleagues you may be hearing about in the weeks ahead. So it was a good conference, I thought. So, and I think I will leave it at that. Thank you.
Mr. Ecker.
Yeah, echo Gary's comments. The conference was really good. A lot of good information this year. And the Makers Fair, didn't get to it, but I did get to see the Fox segment. Britt and Becky did a great job, as well as our staff that got interviewed. And I'm going to ask everybody to bear with me. I'm going to do the rest of my comments from the podium down there and have some guests joining me. The mayor will be asking you to join me in a second.
What?
Okay, so as many of you know, Mayor Erickson has supported the veterans in town for all of her tenure. And so from both our local organizations, we have a little thank you we wanted to present. So start with the post commander of VFW Post 2463, Rich.
Afternoon, Mayor. For all your dedicated service, I'd like to present you this plaque for in recognition for your dedicated service and support of the veterans of foreign wars 2010 to 2025 by VFW Post 2463.
We're going to do another one?
Yep.
Okay, well, then maybe I'll wait.
It's your show. I'm Linda Schwind. I'm post commander of Selmer H.T. Meyerbro, post 245 in Poulsbo. For those of you aren't familiar, Selmer H.T. Meyerbro was mayor of Poulsbo at one time and is also responsible for a lot of the things, including American Legion Park. And the city council, and especially Mayor Erickson, were instrumental in helping us get the Veterans Memorial Plaza done in time for the 100th centennial of the American Legion. So on behalf of American Legion Post 245 and all the veterans of City of Poulsbo, we'd like to present you with this plaque.
I don't know how to say thank you. I mean, without the veterans in our community, Poulsbo would not be Poulsbo. We are a rich military community, and all of the celebrations and memorial services that we have done in the city honoring our veterans and our military service members, it's always been a great honor for me to attend them. I am not a veteran. My father was a World War II veteran, but I am not a veteran. But I have great respect for those that have served. And you guys just keep doing what you're doing. That's the best thing you can do for Poulsbo. You just be strong in your beliefs and keep moving forward. This is a great honor to me. So thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you.
So thank you for that indulgence. Didn't want to add it to an agenda just in case we couldn't all get here on the same night. So we just made it part of my comments because I figured that would work out best. And so thanks again, Becky. It's always been appreciated, your support. So and that's all my comments. Thank you.
Thanks, Rick. I appreciate it. And thank you. Thank you very much. Mr. Stern.
Number one, congratulations, Mayor. Richly earned. I've seen you out there supporting them year after year at the various ceremonies up here on the dais. You've done an outstanding job. So for the 4th of July, the 249th, coming up in 2 days, like to acknowledge my veterans here on the council, Mr. Eckert, Mr. Newell at the far end of the table. Thank you. The American Legion Post, VFW, and all the other many veterans that have served in all the different capacities. I'd like to repeat something I've said the last couple meetings, and it's in light of, Mayor, the fact that we are approaching an advisory vote on the personal use of fireworks. That'll be on the November ballot, non-binding advisory to the City Council about the personal use of fireworks. We don't have an event per se for July 4th, a full community event, but maybe next year, the following year, we could. Number one, you'll recall, Mayor, at a previous workshop about 2 years ago, we explored the possibility of a cultural and organizational fair where all the various groups and organizations can come out to the waterfront, and instead of vendors, it would be each of these groups for a 4th of July on the waterfront, sharing their cultural, their organizational perspectives, followed by some kind of community event that evening. Obviously, we used to have July 3rd. That's gone away, but there is July 4th. And whether that could involve fireworks or drones, Mr. McVeigh, the point is some kind of function for the community to celebrate the 4th of July, to celebrate ourselves, to celebrate each other. I'm wondering, Mayor, what is the best way to look at this? And I think it's a little compelling for two reasons. My personal opinion, I think if we approach the November advisory ballot and we're offering no kind of alternative in the future for an observation for July 4th, people are not going to want to surrender their personal fireworks. There's nothing else happening here in our community. And then number two, that we deserve a July 4th event of some sort. So whether that's a workshop, whether we do it at the Diocese Committee of the Whole, an ad hoc committee, I'd like to ask my colleagues and the mayor to think about how we could approach that. And I think time is of some essence that we look at the question, even if we decide it can't be answered, well in advance of the November ballot. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr.
And we did broach that with Suquamish at the last ad hoc committee, and they discussed the multicultural committee. Maybe we want to talk to them about it at the next one as well.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Stern. Ms. Liddell.
I don't have much to add at this point, but I agree with what you said, Ed. And I do think we should be proactive in having that conversation ahead of the vote in November. Go ahead.
I would just like to thank the citizens who came and spoke tonight. Mr. Fitzpatrick may not be the most exciting topic, but definitely one that we'll keep an eye on. And thanks for bringing it up, and appreciate your eye on the matter. And thanks to our many veterans on the dais and in the audience and all over Kitsap County and some abroad as well, our citizens. And hope everyone has a happy and safe 4th of July.
Thank you. Mr. Newell.
Yes, looking forward a little bit to 2 weeks from tonight. We have a presentation on step housing needs here. This is part of a workshop or a working team between Bainbridge Island, Kitsap County, and us in Poulsbo. Received a grant from Department of Commerce to employ Eco Northwest to help us try to define the problems that need to be solved and provide a prioritization plan. In that standpoint, a lot of tools that we've been exploring from the standpoint of what could be some of those solutions. Tonight, we're going to hear an update on Nordic cottages. There's an update on proposals with regards to hookup fees for ADUs. There's some discussions about what other tools could be out there, whether it be modular housing to support some emergency shelters. And in that standpoint, efforts to try to get kickstarted on some ADUs here in town, to include engaging, I know planning's engaging KBA, but I've also been engaging a couple of our local builders to try to get estimates on what it might take, with the opportunity of, hey, is there a chance to work in a public-private partnership of some sort to get one off the ground so we can see what these look like. So even though we're in the doldrums of July, there is some movement with tools to help our population, like those that are more challenged. That's all I have tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Newell. Did you have a comment? Yeah.
If I could hang on to Councilman Newell's remarks, it gets me excited. Having served alongside the mayor of Kitsap Regional Coordinating Council as the last 2 years, those ADU presets were developed and approved and then disseminated. And we're dealing with some of that tonight later in terms of impact fees. I keep wanting in my mind, Mayor, to tie it to the liberalization of the condo insurance laws, which are now allowing 12 units or less to escape that onerous insurance provision, which is stymied condominium development. In other words, owning a small unit, but not renting, owning it. And the idea, Councilman Newell, of these cottage courts, where we could have up to 12 ADUs side by side, maybe 4 and then 4 in a horseshoe, creating small community, creating equity for working families and young single people, so that it's not just a rental situation here in Poulsbo. That's what excites me very much, and what we can do to streamline and develop that in a private-public partnership.
Yeah, it's exciting to be part of a small town that's exploring multiple options. There isn't one solution for all. So good stuff.
I'm going to have, I have some reports out. I'm going to kind of merge my reports with the board, commission, and outside agency reports. First of all, I want to say thank you to Fox 13 for the zip trip that was was that Friday? Friday. That was last Friday. And it was a lot of fun. And I think Poulsbo looked really good. I think it went about as well as it could go. But we had a complaint from somebody across the water about the noise, and I apologize to John wherever he is, because I answered him a little snarkily. I mean, I have to admit, I was a little snarky. But anyway, so John, I'm sorry, I was snarky. The other thing is I had the honor to go to the Olympic College graduation, and it was cold. They were doing it outdoors. The last graduation I did at Olympic College, it was inside. This one was outside, and it was cold, and I was very, very cold. But it's always so uplifting to see everybody all in the robes. They're all excited. All the kids with the running start stuff, the special, things that they have on their graduation gowns. But hugely proud of Olympic College. I mean, it is doing great things in our community right now, and moving into our allied health proposals and their expansion up here in Poulsbo. It was really good to see, and a lot of really happy faces, even though it was very, very cold. Speaking of Olympic college and such, or I have some sad news to report out tonight about actually our public health district. Yesterday, our public health officer, Dr. Gib Morrow, resigned. And I'm very, very sad to see Gib. I call him Dr. Gib. His name is Gib Morrow, Gibbert Morrow. And so Dr. Gib resigned. He has done a remarkable job for Kitsap County. He started in the middle of the pandemic, and he has been instrumental in pushing Kitsap County to create better medical care. He's worked hand in hand with St. Michael's Hospital. The Allied Health Center would not have happened without some of the pieces that we put together through the health district to prove that we had a healthcare crisis in Kitsap County. And that was Gib Morrow at the Department of Health. And I am very sad to see him go. He's been here 5 years. That's pretty standard for health officers. They're like city managers. They last about 5 years and then they move on. So, but it's true. Now, I said managers, not administrators. He's an administrator. It's something different. Okay.
4.5 years left.
He's something different. So anyway, I just have to say that I'm really sad to see him go. I also attended Kitsap Transit, and they have proposed a new bus route that goes from Kingston, what I call the back way, and it kind of winds down Miller Bay Road and then ends up coming into Poulsbo via Lincoln. And I wrote an email today to Mr. Clausen, who's the executive director at Kitsap Transit, urging him to get that route up sooner rather than later, because in 2027, which in city government time is tomorrow, they're going to dig up Bond Road for culvert replacements, and they're going to close Highway 307, which is Bond. They're going to close Bond Road. So we need to have alternative transportation infrastructure. He told me no, because John always tells me no. Okay, so I have to keep bugging John. I won't give up. And then let's see, what else do I have here? Kitsap 911 is our emergency response organization, and they're raising their fees pretty substantially. The county's got some real budgetary constraints, but even so, the increased fees to the Kitsap County will be over an additional $100,000 on an annualized basis. We're going to be hit up for an additional $27,000, I think, in the city of Poulsbo, just to run their operations center for Kitsap 911. So that's ouch, but it's one of those essential services that we have to have. So I thought I'd better let everybody know. And we have Housing Kitsap joining us this evening. And so I'm very proud to have them here to talk about the Nordic cottages. So, and we also had everybody is suffering from some budget shocks this year, and there will be more as our federal government does its thing. So everybody needs to be very careful about what they're doing and understand very thoroughly the decisions that they're making, because there are people watching. Okay, it's kind of a tough time to be in local government right now. So with that, does anybody else have any more outside agency reports?
I have a question. Like, for you or Ed, have you at KRCC or Elson, have you discussed that closure to where, we know how many cars go through Bond and 305 intersection a day. Are they having any plans for mitigation, any support when that 40,000 car feed now is diverted into other roads that are even in worse shape to handle it than Bond?
I have not heard any in-depth conversation, but I do know that WashDOT is planning to be the spring of 2027 is when they're they have a mandate. They were sued. The state of Washington was sued. They have to complete these culvert crossings in a timely way. And it is supposed to be the spring of 2027. And they expect Bond Road to be closed for over a month.
Yeah.
So it's going to be
I just
a
fear
big deal.
because they're now diverting on the county roads. They're not too concerned about where those cars go. the county is gonna have to pick that up, and if they're not thinking about it,
It's
proactively,
It's gonna be tough.
yeah,
It's gonna be tough.
because
And
those are not roads designed for that kind of
and-
traffic.
even though John Clausen told me no, kids have transit, but he always does that. He always says no. Okay. What his main bus route that goes from the Kids Have Transit's main bus route that goes between Kingston and Poulsbo is on Bond Road. So something is going to happen there. So, but I think we need to start talking about this and get prepared for this closure because it's going to be tough. And 2027 sounds like a long way, but it is not a long way away. Go ahead, Mr. Stern.
Thank you, Mayor. I want to follow up on Councilman Eckert. Councilman Eckert and I, at the previous council meeting, the last couple, have been pursuing the idea of the 307 working group, somewhat in the mold of the 305 working group that was formed some 10 years ago that Commissioner Gelder was on. I know our city administrator thought it was best to start with an inquiry of WashDOT and their support. So my first comment, and then I have a follow-up. Rob, any follow-up or thought on that 307 working group?
Certainly, I will just scratch this one update off of my update that coming up shortly is that I did have the opportunity to reach out to WashDOT. They would like to participate. And again, it would be Joanne Schuler would be the individual who would be the person to sort of not only potentially attend, but mobilize other WashDOT staff when we do it. So the next step will be to pull the other jurisdictions together and try to find an inaugural time to meet.
I think the timing is fortuitous. We were interested in 307 anyway because of traffic and congestion and the rest of it. But in light of what the mayor was talking about, that closure, that's a double reason to be doing this as soon as possible.
And I think the other thing that we would layer on there is we were notified from the county that they will be most likely making the final transition to their new North Road shop,
Yes.
vacating the corner of 305 and Burnt sometime the winter of 26. So all of that, I think, really needs to come into play as we have a conversation.
Fantastic.
It's time. It really
And
is.
we're gonna, another agenda item for c.Minutes because they opened their shop right next to where the county's new facility is, which has certainly changed that intersection's patterns and flavor. And so, you know, something to talk to them about at the end of the month as well as we go into it and get them, because even though it's a little closer to Port Gamble than Suquamish, they now have a major footprint over there. So.
Okay.
So if I could, I want to circle back to Dr. Gibb Morrow, Dr. Gibb, as you call him, and the health department. Number one, I want to acknowledge the mayor's lead role with the Kitsap Health Department in establishing that John Hopkins study. You were the first to recognize budget capacity and brought that forward to Dr. Gibb and the board. So you underplay your role in that. But regards to your larger comment about healthcare crisis, and you've been mentioning at the last couple of council meetings, and I know you did so at Puget Sound Regional Council, the potential effect of the HR 1 bill that's moving through Congress as we're meeting here, your concern about healthcare crisis in the state of Washington. I know there's already a bow effect with St. Michael's. They've begun layoffs because they can already anticipate and see restricted cash flows in certain areas. That's happening, over 200 jobs as we're here. And then I was reading a report this morning that Washington State will be by far the largest impacted by a country mile on HR 1 passage. Some nearly 500,000 people will fall off health insurance and another 150,000 that are in subsidies to afford private carrier under Apple Care will be impacted. I'm wondering what your thoughts are in that regard, Mayor. And if I could, and then I'm done, if all of you could make a note, July 17 is the next meeting of the steering committee. That was decided this afternoon. Olympic College, you're all invited. We'll have 3 or 4 legislators there, and we're looking at that data sets that show the jobs versus the training versus placement in the private sector. But my concern is HR 1 is within minutes of passing and the impact on the state of Washington and Kitsap County.
Well, when I met with, there was a group of us met with Senator Murray's people. We were supposed to be advocating for transportation dollars, but we changed the subject. And we were basically saying to the senator that don't let them touch HUD. Number one, no, leave the vouchers alone. And then the second thing was don't touch Medicaid. don't do it. And of course, nobody's listening very well back there. But the Medicaid thing is going to be really tough here because, you know, a hospital has a legal obligation to treat. You go into a hospital, they have a legal obligation to administer to you. They can't say, no, you can't pay, go out the door. It doesn't work that way. They have a legal obligation to do that. So where do you think they're going to make up their shortfalls? How do you think they're going to get funded for all the people coming in that no longer have Medicaid to support their hospital billing? Where do you think that money's going to come from? It's going to come from the private insurers. So everybody's medical is going to go up in order to compensate. It's the only way this is going to work. If somebody goes into St. Michael's, they have no health insurance. St. Michael's must treat them. It's the law, it's federal law. So this is really complicated stuff. There are no easy answers here. But from what I've read, I probably read the same thing you did. State of Washington is going to hit pretty hard. We have a lot of people on Medicaid that could potentially lose their health care insurance. So I don't know, may you live in interesting times. That was a Chinese curse, right? So I don't have any answers for you. So any other board or commission reports?
Mayor.
Yes, go ahead.
Thanks. Mr. Newell mentioned the STEP housing group that's been meeting. Mr. Newell, myself, the mayor, Kim Hendrickson have been serving on that. And I just want to give my colleagues a heads up. One of the things we've been discussing is could we offer some safe parking, one or more safe parking areas in the city to help with the unhoused who are living out of their cars. Kim has shared with us that in her conversations with our police department, just a rough estimate of about 10 to 12 people per night sleeping in their cars in various private parking lots and so forth. So one of the areas we have been starting to focus on is providing some safe parking for women, particularly who are escaping domestic violence situations. Fishline used to offer that. They ceased that. They still do offer safe parking in our community for men. And so we've started to talk about some possible locations. We've started to talk about some possible partners in that effort. Another meeting will be happening on July 10th to talk further about this and some other topics. So we know it's not going to be easy. There's going to need to be some accommodations in terms of access to restrooms. I was impressed when we invited Fishline in to talk about how they're currently operating the safe parking for men. It's just a few spaces, but they do criminal background checks before they let anyone into their safe parking area. They notify our police department of the people who are going to be there that night. I believe it's a 3-night minimum that they've established for that. So if any of you have concerns about the city accommodating safe parking, please talk with me. If we do decide ultimately in consultation with council to move forward on something, either with partners or on our own, we don't want to divulge the location where this is going to be. So we'll have to be careful about that. So if you'd like to talk with me privately or Kim, particularly, please let me know. But I wanted to give you a heads up about that, just so there's no surprises. Okay. The other quick thing I think I would like to acknowledge is our county commissioners took a pretty big vote last week. They had received nearly 20 proposals to rezone rural areas in our county that for some of us flew in the face of the Growth Management Act. One of those proposals was from Radiant Rayonier for a housing development, a large YMCA sports fields between Poulsbo and Kingston. This council took a unanimous position opposing that development. And I'm pleased to report that County Commissioners Katie Walters and Christine Rolfus voted no on those rural rezoning requests. I want to thank Commissioner Walters and Commissioner Rolfus for for their votes. Those were tough votes. They had a lot of pressure both ways. But I think it was the right decision, and I want to acknowledge and thank the Kitsap County Board of Commissioners. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Fang. Mr. Eckert.
Yeah, I attended that meeting because I had to take the whole week off to go to the conference, and so I was off on Monday. The public hearing portion just for the Radiant was 2 hours, just so folks know. So yeah, that didn't count the discussion and everything else. That was just the public comment. But yeah, it was tough and it's been divisive. And what all three of them said, and what we talked, and I made a comment at the end, is to them after the meeting of working to try to pull folks back together after that, because I don't think anybody was really opposed to the other plan, which was separate from what they were voting on, which was the rezone. So we did talk after the meeting about trying to find a way forward to take some of the energy towards doing more recreation for kids in North End and families and channel that into something that we can all stand behind. So, and then just for where we do have our meeting with Sequamish at the end of the month. And so I was just saying, if folks have things they'd like to see on the agenda for us to discuss, say funnel them to Rob. And so we can put the agenda together, because I know we have a couple of things and then a couple of reoccurring things, but we want to make that a productive meeting. So thank you.
Okay, I'm going to move on to the city administrator and department head comments. We're doing this now as part of our work business agenda. So Rob, you want to kick it off, and then we'll talk to the department heads.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. Just wanted to reiterate my thanks for the opportunity to attend the Association of Washington Cities conference last week. It was, for me, it was additionally beneficial because they had a separate track for administrators and managers. So I was able to meet some of my colleagues from other cities around the state, and that was really helpful. A couple opportunities I wanted to bring back for council. It's never too early to think about. There was a new initiative that this past year has had their first cohort, and that was something that's called affectionately WASILI, but it stands for the Washington Collaborative Elected Leaders Institute. And so they basically have an opportunity to create cohorts from either a city, or it could be near adjoining cities, jurisdictions, to come together and explore different ways to kind of improve their communities. I think it's too late for this year looking at the schedule. But if that is something I can get more information on, bring that back to the council, and potentially we could establish a cohort for next year if it is a benefit. Also, the essential, you may already be on council, but it's always a great opportunity to brush up and learn more. So the elected officials essentials is scheduled for Saturday, December 6th. And so if you would like some information about that, I can get that to you. One of the key takeaways from the AWC conference that I think is germane as we have conversations about ADUs, about impact fees, et cetera, is the impact of potentially the utilization of ADUs. I mean, I think we're moving forward with really trying to focus on how do we expand our housing stock. But one session that popped up at the conference was really related to short-term rentals. And so I think as we continue to have this conversation, it will be an important one for council to noodle on and have. So just a little bit about that. And then I had the opportunity with Josh Rains, our city engineer, to attend the Gravitech Friends and Family event that took place yesterday, which was really very nice of them to extend that invitation to us to be part of it. They are really making that connection to the city and staff, and really wanting to be that good neighbor, good partner. And we appreciate that for them. Last week I had the opportunity to attend webinar that was sponsored by the International City County Managers Association, which was entitled The Global Best Practices in Mobility Planning. So it was actually a really good session. And so we'll be hosting a lunch and learn here in Chambers in a couple of weeks to be able to share that webinar with staff who have the time and ability to participate. And then another meeting for your calendars. Whereas the meeting with Suquamish is on the 28th. The next session for the joint group of the city of Bainbridge Island and Poulsbo is Friday, the 25th of July, from 3 to 4:30. If you have any agenda items that you would like to potentially propose for that, if you could let me know as well. Not to say.
Yeah, what do you want to talk to the Rock about? Okay.
Yeah.
Anyway, I say that with all affection, okay, all affection.
Sorry,
Department,
Mayor, I'm sorry.
yeah,
Rob, can you just confirm for me whether I need to plan to attend that Suquamish MOU meeting as the alternate?
yes.
Yes, I should plan on that. Okay, thank you.
I'm seeing head nods up here. Okay, department heads, who's next?
I'll be next. Good afternoon or good evening, Mayor, City Council, and citizens. Several updates. It's busy, but there's some really neat things happening right now. We were just noted.
Why don't you introduce yourself for yeah.
Hi, everybody. I'm Jeff Osmick. I'm the Parks and Recreation Director for Poulsbo. And we are in this full swing this summer. So there's a lot going on for Parks and Rec and our parks and our programs. And on that note, we were just notified last evening that we're in the running for Best of North Kitsap on 3 categories. The first is best community gathering spot, because we have a recreation center. Lots of folks come together, hundreds every day, especially our seniors. We have a nomination for best sports coach. One of our gymnastics coaches, Ginger Selfies, does a phenomenal job. And then we have the best free community concert series, which starts on Tuesday. So next Tuesday, 6 to 8 at Waterfront Park, the Navy Band, our community favorite, usually has 400 to 500 people, kicks off the summer concert series. 100% free. Recommend coming a little before 6 so you get a pretty good spot to sit and watch. They're very interactive, so please put it on your calendars. Also, North Kitsap Daily News is the one who's hosting this vote, so if you want to vote, please do. We always love to have everybody. For council and the mayor, this is a gentle poke. We are working on organizing a ride and learn on the Sound to Olympics Trail with elected officials. I'm poking because it's important that elected officials can respond that they're able to attend, and our city administrator included. We only have a couple RSVPs from Mayor Ashley Matthews on Bainbridge and Commissioner Rolfus so far. We're hoping for some more so we can cement the date. That's Friday, September 5th. There will be bikes available, including electric bikes. So it should be easier, and we're working on a shuttle system and a post get-together happy hour afterwards. So council, mayor, city administrator, if you are able to make the full ride from Bainbridge to Poulsbo or before, or just want to come to the social and talk to everybody, all are welcome. It's really important to have our electeds there. And if you can let me know, by Monday would be great, please.
What's the time, Jeff? What's the time frame?
Wonderful. So it would be meeting over near the ferry terminal, right around 1 p.m. to do bicycle safety checks, and then likely heading out at 1:30, wrapping up around 3:34.
I can make that. My board meeting in Olympia ends early.
Got it. Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you. Moving on, we just wrapped up our DNR grant for the urban tree canopy assessment, and we're looking at the data and the recommendations. There will be a pretty good presentation coming to council later this year, but we need to have a press release talking about what we did as one of our DNR grant requirements. So the short version is, in 30 years, we have lost some trees, and it went down quite a bit, about 30%, and it's ticked back up in the last 10 years or so. And there's some really good recommendations for how we can manage that. We're going to be coming to council with the tree board and Western Washington University to talk about that in the future. In the meantime, we're going to draft up a very preliminary press release that you may see. I'm going to skip that one and move on to something really neat. You're going to love this. Oh, yes. And it's only one photo. I am working on this. Right, council, can you see this?
Says step.
Brooks, how do I make the whole thing giant? Oh, he's gone. Is it control? Is it control F? Or is it function? There we are. All right, this is really neat. So this camp just started on Monday, completely filled. We started a second one. It's itty bitty bakers, and they are making every single day this week in the recreation center. Yeah, and you can tell on the far right picture that has a bunch of other tables with kids. They are baking every day. Also, if you want to come by and say hi or help us eat all the cookies, I'm serious. We have a lot of cookies that they're baking and they can't eat them all and bring them home. So this is one of our programs that we're doing. We have 7 camps running to this week, 7 camps next week. Let me hit stop sharing. All right, we're back to normal there. And I also want to point out that we have this month in July, 140 different programs. 140, that means one program could have multiple sessions. We're just saying 140 programs. That's over 1,000 programs a year. So we are in our summer's our busiest time by far.
You all need to know that the Parks and Rec Department at the City of Poulsbo employs over 100 people, full-time, part-time, coaches, etc., and they produce over 1,000 different classes. So for the City of Poulsbo, I mean, it's a big thing. So go
That's
for
why-
it, Jeff.
Thank you. And
Could I
thank
add
you,
real
Mark.
quick, Jeff, on your itty bitty bakers in that kitchen?
Do you have a
So
request?
I had the opportunity to attend the seniors when they had their pre-Thanksgiving luncheon. A big shout out to Diane and Mike and Public Works for the restoration work that was done in-house on that kitchen. That's enabling a lot of this. It looks first class and terrific work. Mike, again, kudos to your crew getting it ready last fall.
Thank you, Councilmember Stern. And I will say thank you to the mayor because that was her budget that she helped authorize for that. And also the phenomenal work that Josh Jones and Public Works did, who took one ridiculous sale with Home Depot and also got some donated materials to make that renovation. On July 14th at council will be hearing a presentation from our senior task force and partners about phase 2 of that, including some new design work in the programs. The last part is also on seniors, so perfect tee up. Our first draft of the senior newsletter that works with our North Kitsap Senior Citizen Center, the Kitsap Regional Library, Fish Line, and I know I'm missing someone right now, and another partner, I apologize. Oh, our partners at the Squamish Tribe is going through the second draft and it should be ready next week. And that's a one-stop shop for seniors in our community to know what's happening Monday through Friday for the next 2 months for free and reduced programs all throughout the community for those programs. Council helped fund a little bit of funding for staff to put that together, and it's coming along nicely. And that'll be it.
All right. Thanks, Jeff. Diane, anything from you?
I just wanted to mention one thing. The mayor mentioned 2 culverts that will be worked on Bond Road in 2027. Engineering and Public Works has met with the contractor Kiewit, who's doing the design build for those. And Michael and Josh have provided input on ways to streamline and try to do it as quickly as possible. We also invited them to join council and present their project. That'll happen later, but I think it's important for them to come before council and the citizens so everybody's aware of the project long before it happens.
They are going to close the road, though. That's what I.
That's correct.
Yes.
That is correct. There's 2 culverts they'll be working on and they're planning to close the road where the culverts are. And our goal was to help them expedite the process so it's closed for the minimal amount possible. Yeah.
Thank you, Diane. Go ahead.
On that work, and I'm going to turn to the mayor, when you were first on council and your husband was active in the iron unions in Seattle, brought to the attention of WashDOT, the city and the county, the alternative of pipe jacking. I'll never forget that because Highway 305 was to be shut down right before the casino. Think about the impact of that versus 307. So the pipe jacking was a bit of a miracle. Is there any potential for pipe jacking on any of this work as it was for 305?
I don't know. But they were going to shut down Highway 305 right by the casino. That was actually before I was on council. That was going on. Yeah. So it'll be interesting to hear what they have to say. See if there's some I mean, if it's only shut for a couple days, that's one thing, but you know, it's gonna be shut for a couple of months, that's a whole nother thing. So, we need to figure it out, so. Anything else, Diane?
No, the other thing I wanted to mention is we'll get back to Mr. Fitzpatrick on Fourth Avenue comments. Josh was out when those comments were made, so we'll do that later. Okay, thank you.
Dan, any comments tonight? Okay, how about back there, Chief, anything? Mike? Oh, Kim.
Good evening, Mayor.
Sorry.
I snuck up.
Sorry.
Good evening, Mayor. Good evening, Council. I just wanted to second something that Mayor Erickson said about Dr. Gib Morrow's announcement of his departure of the Public Health Board. Council might not be aware, but I think it should be, that Dr. Morrow was instrumental in setting up the Recovery Center when we established that about a year and a half ago. I'm not sure we could have pulled it off without Dr. Morrow's support and help. And frankly, credibility. He helped us go after the first grant that funded the center. He's been a member of the advisory board since the moment that we opened. He's helped me on many occasions think through some of the partnerships at the center. And I just want to second the mayor's comments and say how much H3 appreciates Dr. Morrow's work. One nice thing about getting older is that you see things that you never thought that you'd see. We had a visit last week from a representative from the Washington City's Insurance WCIA Authority. Mayor Erickson and I, when we started the center and started many other projects here at Poulsbo, have always felt a very productive tension with WCIA and other risk managers trying to push the envelope to help people in Poulsbo, but understanding that we're doing things other cities don't normally do. We had a visit from WCIA on Friday, which led to an email that I received today saying how much our representative liked what we were doing, appreciated what we were doing, and was actually proud to see what we were doing at the center and the cafe. So
Wow.
again, getting old has its benefits. I have a risk manager that's happy with what we're doing at the center and cafe, and I just wanted to share that with council.
That means we are covered, right? Yeah.
They get a call.
If we stay in scope, yes, stay in scope. Finally, I'll be bringing something to council a couple of workshops from now. We work with Gambit Recovery, as you know, to operate the Nelson House, which is a recovery house for men here in Poulsbo. Our current agreement with Gambit has a very narrow set of criteria for folks that they can accept into the house. One of the criteria is that residents can't have a felony on their record. After speaking to our lawyer and our risk manager about that felony charge, that we have figured out a way that we can create an exception to that rule for people that are engaged in recovery efforts, attending drug court, and taking their recovery seriously. So I'll be coming back to council in a couple of weeks to talk about a possible exception to that agreement that's been approved by both WCIA and our lawyer for your consideration. Just wanted to give you a heads up before it came to council. Thanks.
Okay, any other department heads have comments? I'm looking at the row of you back there. Anybody? Okay,
Thank you.
Yeah.
Just
go ahead.
real quick, in case Kim and Ron sneak out before I get a chance to speak again. I said one of the sessions I attended at AWC was the comment on the police academy. And so I just wanted to say thank you because I asked her a lot of questions and she claimed they were all good. And so I felt very well informed. And that comes from the two of you because it was a lot of them were about the House bill and the new grant. And so, yeah, I asked a lot of questions. Most of my questions, she said, wow, that's a really good question. And so we talked a little bit after, and I credit the two of you for all the things that I repeated. They were not my new ideas. So just thank you for making me sound smart.
All right, unless there is any other department head comments, we are going to move on to the consent agenda. All matters listed within the consent agenda have been distributed to each member of the city council for reading and study and are considered to be routine. It is items 8A through J. And I would entertain a motion.
Madam Mayor, move to approve consent agenda items A through J.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Mr. McVeigh.
McVeigh, aye.
Eckert, aye.
Stern, aye.
Lived on.
Favor aye. Bill aye.
Thank you, council. Now we're moving on to the business agenda. The first item is ordinance number 2025-08, appointive municipal appointive municipal officers ordinance update, and this is Mr. Gelder. Go ahead, Rob.
Thank you. Bringing back to council this evening after we brought it a couple of times to workshop, and per the last conversation, have refined the ordinance that is before council for consideration and potential adoption this evening that incorporates language in section 9B that does include the language for individuals for the offices of the city clerk, finance director, police chief, planning and economic development director, parks and recreation director, housing, health and human services director, public works director, and city engineer shall be filled by written appointment of the city administrator in consultation with the mayor, subject to participation by city council during the interview process and confirmation of council at an official meeting. If you recall from last week, it was a good conversation. I would say that we had more direction to bring forth that language. And so in order to simplify our process this evening, we brought back one option. I think last week we had thought, well, maybe we bring back something with two options. It really would have complicated the process of making motions, et cetera. So we brought forth one option that could be acted upon by council. And if there's a will of the council, that could be amended if you wanted to change the language further. But I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay, any questions for City Administrator Gelder? I don't know, it's been years. It's gonna take me a while, okay? Questions for Rob? Go ahead.
Well, it's something that didn't dawn on me previous and I should have asked. We removed public works superintendent because they answered to the public works director, but we didn't change city engineer. So if you just said, what was the thinking there? Because they both funneled to Diane. And so why we treated one differently than the other?
Do you want to?
I think it could go either way, to be honest, but the Poulsbo Municipal Code and the construction standards have a number of items that the city engineer is responsible for. And I think that might be the reason.
There's some liability issues here.
Yeah, it's fairly common that there is a confirmation either on a county level or a city level for the official engineer of record.
Yes. All right, so this is ordinance number 2508. Is there any other questions? And if not, I would entertain a motion.
I'd be happy to make a motion, Mayor.
Go ahead, Mr. McCray.
Move to approve ordinance number 2025-08, an ordinance of the city of Poulsbo, Washington, adopting section 2.08.015 of the Poulsbo Municipal Code, establishing the office of the city administrator, amending certain sections of chapter 2.08 of the Poulsbo Municipal Code to provide for the authority, duties, and qualifications of the city administrator, providing for severability, and establishing an effective date.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion regarding this matter?
Yeah, I'd like to move to amend the ordinance and strike and confirmation of council at an official meeting.
Okay, so that is a motion to strike and council. What particular section are you in, Mr. Ecker?
Yeah, so it would be 9B. So basically, subject to participation of city council during the interview process, ending it there, removing and confirmation of council at an official meeting.
Okay, there is an amendment on the table. Is there a second to this amendment? I'm seeing no second. So the amendment fails. No second proffered. Okay, so is there any other questions or concerns regarding this? Seeing and hearing none, I'd entertain a motion, please. Oh, we already did it, sorry.
We have a motion and a second.
Okay, motion is second. Any other further comment?
I'll just make a quick comment. Yeah, I think it's important for transparency, it's a big deal if we're changing a head of a department and then bringing them here for the whole city to see, for the council to meet. And, even though it's probably 9 times out of or 99 times out of 100, it's going to be ceremonial. I think that's still important. So I look forward to upholding this.
Motion is second. Mr. McVeigh.
McVeigh, aye.
Eckert, no.
Stern, aye.
Lived I.
Tabor, aye.
Newell, aye.
Thank you, council. Motion passes 5-1. Okay. So we are now moving on to ordinance number 2025-11, 2025 second quarter budget amendments, and this is Ms. Boer. She is not in.
And she is not here.
Are
She
you
is
wearing
doing
the
what
Deb hat?
I
Okay,
am
go
wearing the
ahead.
Deb hat, and she is doing what all great finance folks do. She's attending the GFOA conference in unfortunately probably a very humid, sticky DC. But she'll soon be back to the good Washington in the next few days. So this is, as council is familiar, this is the process by which the budget is amended on a quarterly basis. In your packet was a list of those items which have been previously approved by council. But this is that aggregate process by which we do that and offer an opportunity for public comment.
Okay. This is the budget amendments for preceding quarter. This is a time for public comment. If there's any public comment regarding these budget amendments, please step to the podium, state your name, and you have 5 minutes. Public comment. Any public comment? Seeing and hearing none, I'd entertain a motion.
Would it,
Close the public hearing at,
It's not technically not a public
it's not a
hearing,
public
this-
hearing, is it?
no,
It's just,
just
it's
a
just,
comment
you
hearing.
just asked for comments. Okay. All right,
can I ask a question?
sure.
Okay. Well, Chief Harding is still in the room. I just, on the 2 new police vehicles, at a cost of $160,000. I'm just curious if, are we able to purchase hybrid vehicles or are they still all gas?
Cheap.
All gas?
Like-
Okay, that's fine.
We still have gas vehicles.
Okay. Are hybrids an option these days or not really as part of the buying pool or?
Not that I've seen on the state bid.
Okay, okay.
And the two.
I know
that
we discussed it once previously and I thought we had some lined up, but they didn't work out for some reason or another.
It did not. I don't know when or if they will come back online.
Okay, thank you, Chief.
Okay. Mr. Stern.
I have a question, Chief, on these vehicles. It was 6-7 years ago, we adopted a revolving replace schedule so that we'd be operating with continuity. These will just be added onto that schedule now and be automatically reviewed for replacement.
Yes, actually, we've been talking with Mr. Gelder about that schedule and how we can streamline it, maybe expand to the city. We're looking at other options to make that all kind of comprehensive.
Okay. All right. This is ordinance number 2025 11.
I'd be happy to make a motion, Mayor.
Go ahead, Mr.
Mike. Oh, Mr. Newell, would you like to make the motion?
No, go.
Okay, go.
Accelerate.
You can
go,
second it.
let's
Move to approve ordinance number 2025-11, 2025 second quarter budget amendments.
Like to second.
Second.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. Any further questions or conversation? Okay, seeing and hearing none. Mr. McVeigh.
McVeigh, aye.
Eckert, aye.
Stern, aye.
Lived I.
Tabor, aye.
Newell, aye.
All right, thank you, council. We are now in the time where we will do a meeting break for about 5 minutes to move down to the table. And I'm going to ask if we can, before we do this, to go ahead and move the Nordic cottages up so that our guests can come and be here and then go home.
Good.
Okay, can we do that? All right, so we'll reconvene at 6:08 or 6:09, 5 minutes. Do you want to, you guys want to kind of start gathering around here? Let's move along. Okay, well, we have, it's now 10 after 6, and so we're going to reconvene our workshop, and we have moved up the update on Nordic Cottages and Housing Kitsap Partnership. First of all, I want to say thank you to Heather and Dean and Freddie for coming up here. We've been working with Housing Kitsap for many years, and you guys are doing fabulous work right now. So thank you so much for being here. So.
Right, good evening, Council. We're here tonight to present an update on the Nordic Cottages project. I'm here tonight with representatives of Housing Kitsap. I might just turn to you and ask you all to introduce yourselves. Freddie, would you mind starting?
Freddie Linares, I'm the Director of Compliance for Housing Kitsap.
D-Nail, actually Development and Acquisition Director now.
Heather Blau, Executive Director.
Thank you so much. We'll be talking a little bit more during this presentation about the City of Poulsbo Housing Kitsap Partnership. It's very essential to this project. And I think really the central ingredient of why things have gone as well as they have. As you see on this front slide, this is a picture that was taken, I think, about 2 weeks ago. Cottages are up, the paint is on. They really look like Nordic cottages now. So really happy to come before you and give you all an update. Tonight's presentation will have a building update, a budget update with a caveat. We'll be coming back to council in a few weeks to talk in more specifics about the budget and particularly the operating budget to help us think through a management agreement with Housing Kitsap. I'll be turning to my partners at Housing Kitsap to talk about the tenant selection process. Many of us at the city have received lots of calls of interested parties wanting to know who gets to live at the cottages and what the process is. I hope we can answer most of those questions tonight. We've got a few upcoming dates for council consideration related to an open house and a move-in date, and finally a few words about upcoming council action. So just a reminder to the public that might not be following this project. The Nordic cottages consist of 2 cottages. You can see them on your screen now with the beautiful roofs and solar panels. We are constructing 8 one-bedroom apartments at 609 Northeast Lincoln. It's known as the Triangle, and if you see from this aerial view, you can understand why, because of that triangle shape. The Nordic Cottage project is the result of many different partnerships, but in particular, I want to highlight the city's partnership with Housing Kitsap, Gateway Fellowship that was able to work with us to provide some much needed parking spaces, and Coates Design, our architect. Within the city, this has been an effort with the Department of Planning and Economic Development that certainly helped this project get started. Engineering that has done quite a bit of work with the project construction itself, and Housing, Health, and Human Services. Just a reminder to council and the public that we've been talking about Nordic cottages since around 2020. There's been work groups, council committees, council discussions for the last 5 years about this project. So it's really exciting to come before you tonight and talk about an actual move-in date. In addition to the partnerships that I mentioned, I think it's important to note that the Nordic Cottage project also represents a decision that City Council made back in 2020 to set aside some parcels of city property for permanently affordable housing. So in Resolution 2020, City Council decided that the Triangle property at 609 Lincoln, as well as the property at the Klingle Natural Area, would be set aside permanently for affordable housing. This is the basis, I think, of a land trust idea that we might have future conversations about in our discussions about promoting affordable housing. The other reason this project happened is because of the 0.1% sales tax that this council decided to move forward with in 2020, went into effect in 2022. That 0.1% tax puts about $600,000, a little bit more, every year into a fund that we can use for affordable housing and also services for vulnerable individuals like at the Recovery Center. Okay, a building update. Groundbreaking October 2024. Still love that picture. We awarded BJC Construction to be our contractors. I'm proud to say that the project is on track to complete construction a month ahead of schedule. We're looking for completion the first week in September. The interior finish, trim, cabinets, and bathrooms are currently underway. The external work is still to be completed, but as you saw from the first slide and from driving by, that exterior work is almost done. All utilities are completed. Curb, gutter, sidewalk are installed. Gazebo, fencing, and site landscaping will be completed, along with something called the Hope Garden that we're going to be constructing with local nonprofit partners, the Bluebills, to make sure that there are beautiful planters there on site for residents or community gardeners to fill and keep a garden vibrant there at the center. That phrase or that naming of the Hope Garden is in recognition of Representative Tara Simmons' contribution at the state legislature to this project. Because of Representative Simmons, over $400,000 is going from the state to this project. More about that in a moment. Her one request to us was that we build a Hope Garden to commemorate the importance of keeping hope alive. In terms of our budget, again, we'll be coming back with a more detailed budget to council a couple of sessions from now. But just in terms of an overview, the overall budget is just under $4 million, and that includes all construction costs, architect, Housing Kitsap costs, contingency cost, construction management, building permits, connection charges, etc. Of that $4 million, we have received outside funds from a state legislative proviso. I just mentioned that in connection with Representative Simmons. We received a county home CDBG grant in the amount of $400,000. We received a state commerce grant for about $300,000, bringing in about $1.1 million from outside sources for this project. Who are these people?
That's the best picture of me ever.
The role of Housing Kitsap is difficult to overstate. Dean Nail in particular has been spearheading our project management as the buildings have gone up. We are deeply appreciative of Dean and the rest of the staff at Housing Kitsap's capacity and expertise. Once the buildings are completed, Housing Kitsap will maintain a really critical role in this project as our property manager. And as property manager, Housing Kitsap will be in charge of the tenant selection process, managing everything having to do with the tenants at the property, the upkeep of the property, and the administration of project-based vouchers. So I think I'll turn to Dean at this point to just say a few words from your perspective about that relationship between Housing Kitsap and the city.
So I think it's interesting that I came in with the construction expertise, if you will, but really that role has gotten fairly small. Charlie is really managing the construction and he's doing an amazing job. He's keeping an eye on costs. He's doing his own cost saving measures. I don't think that was, I think that was completely upon himself to, he saw how much landscaping was there and he's like, you know, I think if we do this and this, and there's a savings out of that. So yeah, and actually I wish he was here because he is really doing a good job. He's been great to work with. I know BJC would say the same. They anytime there's any kind of request for information, Charlie's promptly on it, and collectively we've kept those guys moving forward. So I'm certain they don't have anything negative to say. BJC has been a great partner in this. As we know, they're doing things quickly, and it is a big little project, if you will. So the size of the project it definitely has helped it move speedily along. But there's quite a bit of infrastructure, as you guys know. So they've really been doing a good job. This is a partnership. It is not our project, although we've taken it on, I think, as our own. I really do feel like it is, while we'll end up maintaining it, it is definitely more work than I would have thought as we started this 2 years ago. But as we prepare for move-in, I just wanted to share, only because this is how serious we're taking the project. We did have to update our tenant selection plan and policy, which includes administration waitness policy of Nordic. So, you know, we had to add all of those things to keep us in compliance. It's obviously, we had to update our voucher program plan to include Nordic, and as well as administer the HAP contract.
which will require inspections and different things. So we're able to collect that money for the city. We are in the
Not the city.
on the city's behalf.
Yeah, there you go.
And we are preparing to open the wait list in July. And so, and with that, we intend to keep it open for 2 days. We know that there's going to be a strong desire, and we don't want to have a wait list that's 200 applicants deep.
Hey, let me back you up for just a second. Can you just run through who's eligible to live at the cottages?
Sure. So, as we all know, seniors 62 and over, 30% of AMI, and that is only about $26,000. So it's a fairly low income in Kitsap County. We were able to establish the preference for folks with a Poulsbo zip code. So,
Can I add? There's 2 more zip codes that were added to that. And I think
They're north end. They're
correct.
Yeah, they're all.
So it's
around
not
here.
just Poulsbo, but there's like 3 zip codes that were in the preference and rent burdened households. So those are the 2 preferences. They'll give them more weight once they apply for the community. So if they have those 2 preferences, they'll basically rise to the top of the waiting list.
So let me just clarify, because I know many people will be looking for this information. If you work in the Poulsbo area, and that's 3 different zip codes, and live in the Poulsbo area, so it's both live and work in those zip codes.
Right.
Yeah.
That's the preference.
Very good. In terms of occupancy, we're looking for a maximum of 2 people that can live in each of the 1-bedroom homes.
correct. 2 people is the HUD's maximum for 2-bedroom.
It could it could be slightly different. HUD regulations do allow for an additional person. But in conversations with the team working on this, they felt that 2 were max that we wanted to add due to the space of the units.
They're not very big.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're not very big. So.
And that's a decision that was made in the tenant selection plan based on the conversations.
Maybe could you just say just a moment about what a tenant selection plan looks like? Because we would like to show council what that plan looks like the next time we meet.
How many pages? 76? It's about 76 pages, as I understand it. It is a policy that guides how we open a waiting list, how people are pulled off a waiting list, how people are determined eligible, what kind of rental criteria or past rental criteria people have, what kind of criminal activity might disqualify people, occupancy standards like the 2 maximum. And it also speaks to, because of the project-based vouchers, how the waiting list is open and closed, because those are regulatory requirements. So we are operating within that.
2 tenants. What's the policy on guests residing and guests visiting?
It is allowed. So we would be using our standard lease from what I understand. And I believe currently it states up to 14 days is allowed as a guest.
Go ahead, Doug.
For the selection process and for the admittance process, is there a mechanism to change as per federal HUD rules change, for example, like income, asset limitations and stuff like that for Section 8 vouchers and things, change, like, so in like another 4 years and 8 years, when those rules change, is there a mechanism to take those changes and then apply them to
the tenant selection
to the
plan?
tenant selection?
Yes, so there's an administrative plan that governs the vouchers. The tenant selection plan we're talking about right now governs Nordic cottages specifically, and they are living documents. As things change, we will update them. And our Board of Commissioners approves them when they get updated.
Excellent.
Talk about the waiting list.
So the waiting list, like we mentioned, it will be open for 2 days. The applicants will be able to actually come to our lobby. We have limited hours at Housing Kitsap, but for those 2 days, it'll be open 8 hours, 8 to 4:30. We'll have staff on hand with laptops in the lobby, being able to assist anyone that may have issues with online applications. We have some fairly likely somebody that will have those kind of challenges, so we're there to support them through that process. And that's really all I have about that before we move into the next open house?
Yeah, the wait list is only open for 2 days, but there is a notice that the wait list will open. So there is some time before the wait list opens that the public knows what day it will open. And I just wanted to flag for council and the public 2 ways to be notified when that wait list is going to open. The first thing that I would suggest is signing up for public notices at the Kitsap Sun. I have the website at the top left of the screen. You can enter your email address in the public notices notification section of the Sun and get notices sent to you automatically, and then disenroll when you get the information that you need. The other way to track when the waiting list is going to open is to look at the Housing Kitsap page itself. As Dean just mentioned, they're anticipating opening the waiting list sometime in July. So if I was interested in the cottage, I would start looking at that Housing Kitsap website every morning when I wake up to see if there's any notices on there about when the waiting list is going to open.
Go ahead, Britt. Can the city put something out on our social media pages to at least help guide people where to
I
look?
think we can put it after this meeting. What we'll do is we'll put out a press release about what's occurred in this meeting. And we'll list this information and then put that out.
What I really don't want to happen is for people to say, oh, we had no idea. And I know there will be people, there always will be, but I really feel like sometimes we break down on the communication level, and that would be a shame.
Thank you for that. One way I can mitigate that a bit is I've got about 100 people that are on an information list with me that have been tracking the project since we announced it. After the meeting tonight, I plan to reach out with a mass email to those 100 people to let them know these are the ways to track the waiting list. I like your suggestion to push it out even further on social media. And Dean had a suggestion to hang a big banner on the site itself to flag that the way to track this is to be looking at the Housing Kitsap website. So I'm waiting for the banner to arrive. It should come today or tomorrow.
Thank Doug and then Ed.
I was just gonna say, I assume you're working with Fishline to promote as well.
No. No.
Probably another good place to just put a banner or something, or even a brochure for.
You know, their case managers are wonderful. I think as I compose the messages that we're sending out to folks on the interest list, including not just Fishline, but other community partners, is a terrific idea.
Awesome.
Thank you for that, Councilmember.
Go ahead, Mr. Stern.
Thank you, Mayor. We're doing the Kitsap Sun public notices up there on the screen. Is the Kitsap Sun interested in doing a news piece, an article on it? And if so, then timely, that you'd be able to get notice throughout their regular system instead of just public notice on the back of the paper.
Great point. I suspect as we post this on social media, they'll see it, and I'll certainly follow up to see if they're interested in doing this.
And or invite the story.
Yep. I will just say, as the person that will receive the calls from people that are disappointed that they couldn't get in, there are 8 units. And already I have an interest list of 100, and yeah. So, in terms of
lottery.
Yeah. In terms of dates for council consideration, Housing Kitsap has suggested September 12 for an open house. Before agreeing to that date, I wanted to make sure it was something that the council was comfortable with and there were no conflicts with other things happening in the city. Does September 12th as an open house seem to work for
Is
council?
there going to be a ribbon cutting?
That's what I pictured.
I guess
I
we
mean,
got the ribbon on the 12th.
I've been waiting for this for years. There better be a ribbon cutting.
So
Okay.
the contractor said they'd be done on around the 1st. We gave ourselves a few extra days. There was discussion about pre-walkthrough with our board members. We were thinking a couple days prior, but that date's not set. Tentatively, the Wednesday before. The 12th is a Friday. So
Like lunchtime, right after lunch.
sure. So yeah,
Established.
1 o'clock it is.
And Dean, I'm looking at the date and I just want to confirm September 15th as a move-in target date.
And
I'm gonna say target date.
Yeah,
That's, we're
and-
hoping for 100% occupancy.
part of this discussion is the fact that we are taking this seriously and we've implemented the steps that we think we can have all 8 tenants at the open house with ready to move in on Monday. That's the intention of our next steps.
So when are you touring the Housing Kitsap board through it? Wednesday,
Well, we were thinking Wednesday at 1 o'clock.
Yeah, the Wednesday before the 12th.
the Wednesday before the 12th, okay.
And then an open house right after lunch on September 12th. Sounds great. Yeah, and
You have to remember those two.
No, I got that one.
And one of, one of the long list of Dean's excellent ideas was if we could invite the new residents. We don't want them to have people walking through their homes after they've unpacked, but if they pre-move in, were a part of this celebration, so they could be there as the public tours the cottages to say hello and to let people know with a face who's living at the cottages to make this even more of a personal experience. I think that would be terrific. In terms of upcoming council actions, as I mentioned before, I think it's important that council looks at Housing Kitsap's tenant selection plan, all 75 pages of it, just to understand what it looks like and where to direct people if they have questions about process. That's not something that council would be approving. It would just be for information, and I'll have that available to you, I think, in the next couple of weeks. We are also currently working on the Housing Kitsap Property Management Agreement that will dictate the terms, the ongoing terms of the property management services Housing Kitsap offers to the city. And we're anticipating that being ready at the end of the month. Okay. Happy to take any additional questions.
So on the note of budget, the administrative costs that'll be passing through to Housing Kitsap and some subsidy, I assume, to your department, I don't know. Where do you see that coming out of the overall budget over time? And in the same respect, the maintenance, repair and replacement line item, how will that be covered through time? From what sources?
So I can generally tell you that a property management agreement would include covering those items and then billing back direct project expenses to the development. So when you have a project, it has its expenses and then you bill expenses to that development. So it comes right off of the, the rent that's collected. And so that's essentially the plan, plus a fee for Housing Kitsap to do the property management of the development. And we're talking right now about replacement reserve, which we would build up over time. They're brand new units, so you won't need a lot of replacement reserve initially. So we would build that up over time. I think we looked and it was
$7,400, I believe.
$7,400 a year, I think is what the pro forma says. And of course that would might increase over time or as it stacks up.
In other words, it's anticipated to come out of the cash flow between HUD vouchers and the supplemental match from the employee. It's not coming out of our 1/10 or some other administrative overhead.
Correct. It's coming on the cash flow. I'm sorry, I misunderstood the question.
So I can say that we feel the project will support all of the activity, except for the bond payments.
It won't
Yeah.
support all the bond payments. Okay,
That
so
will cover.
those bond payments will come out of the 1/10 of 1%, not all of the bond payment. We're hoping it'll cash flow enough to help support some of the bond.
Our preliminary
Estimates.
performance shows that it does cash flow.
A little bit.
The number is, it's not minimal, it's significant.
Yeah.
And
So-
when we come back in a few weeks, we'll actually
We'll
have the
have-
pro
yeah.
forma to show.
And with that out and Charlie out, we can.
And we're safe with HUD on new vouchers being originated, or you already have them within Housing Kitsap.
Right, so that has been a concern, and Mayor Erickson has asked virtually every month at the
Yes.
board meeting. So what happens when we're looking at our funding and when we're looking at whether or not we can issue vouchers? We look at something called a 2-year tool and we project out what's going to happen. And the 8 project-based vouchers that have been awarded to Nordic have been in that formula for a year and a half now. And we have an AHAP signed, which is a contract that says we're going to do this. So I don't have any concern about them at this point unless something really strange.
And of course, you've read all 1,000 pages of HR1 that's being discussed in Congress.
Not all
No,
1,000 pages because I wind up.
Well, they've been awarded for a year and a half effectively. The vouchers are there. So we should be relatively safe. The ability for Housing Kitsap to place any more vouchers might be a little tough. At least that's just what I'm seeing coming out of the federal government.
Right. So vouchers, project-based vouchers, there's a limitation on how many you can place for each housing authority. Bremerton, I think, has some room in their program. We have maxed out our program with Nordic, Southern Cross, Times Square. There are a couple of new things that we're working on. Us getting additional funding is a question. It is, and this one's gonna slip right under the wire, which is a really good thing. We are very, very excited, I have to tell you. When I interviewed, sorry, I have an alarm going off. When I interviewed for this job, Mayor Erickson actually asked me, where do you see yourself in 5 years? And we're about at year 4. And I said, starting to look at development. And so when the conversation, even though it's not our development, but we're participating in the development happened, we were very, very excited because we haven't developed for years and years. So we're getting there.
Yes.
And this partnership was wonderful. And that picture was from an award. This partnership won. Did you share that?
Council is aware that we
Okay.
were recognized as being one of the innovative projects of the year, which is just wonderful. One final thing I'll say before we close, and it's in belated response to you, Councilmember Livedall. There are people in our community that are interested in these cottages that are not online. If you run into folks or if people listening need help monitoring the web or with an application and are not internet savvy, I'm delighted to take those calls. It's illegal for me to give people a heads up when the waiting list opens, but like everybody else, I can monitor the Kitsap Sun and help alert people when the waiting list is open. So my information is all listed on the city's website. I'm more than happy to be a resource for people that have difficulty with the computer. Thank you.
I should add that Tyler Schuler with Kitsap Daily News should be contacted as well. He covers the local scene.
That's great.
I just can't believe they're finally, it's been 10 years for me. I mean, 10 years we've been trying to do this. So I'm just thrilled. And I keep looking for the next one. Okay. I already got a couple of pieces of property where we could go, it'll fit, etc. So anyway, stay tuned. Any other questions for Kim or our guests? Okay. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having us.
Okay, Kim, why don't you just stay put there?
For 2 months.
Why don't you just, because it's the agreement with the Recovery Cafe Network for coffee, Recovery Cafe operations, budget amendment 250301.
Thank you, Mayor. I think this one will be relatively quick.
Just hold, guys, we're moving on with the meeting. Mr. Stern, we're moving on with the meeting. Okay,
Thank
go
you.
ahead, Kim.
As council is aware, we have operated a cafe associated with the Recovery Center since around March of this year. Several months ago, we were accepted into a network called the Recovery Cafe Network, making the North Kitsap Recovery Cafe, I believe, the 78th Recovery Cafe in the country and the first one to be run by a municipality. As part of being accepted into the Recovery Cafe Network, we were awarded a grant of $100,000. Some of those funds are contingent on us doing some private fundraising, which we have already started. So I'm coming to council tonight to just ask for a budget amendment consideration for $40,000. The remaining $60,000 will be part of your budget for next year and will include an assumption that we're able to meet our fundraising goals. So again, the budget amendment tonight is just for $40,000 for 2025, even though the grant is for $100,000. In 2026, the remainder of the funds will be earned and it's put into the budget. Funds from the Recovery Cafe Network will be primarily used to support staff at the center, but there's a small amount put aside for operational costs, which include food as well.
Any questions for Kim? It's pretty straightforward.
Pretty straightforward.
Okay, and this will be on the consent agenda next week?
That's right, yes.
Okay, all right.
Great.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kim. Okay, so the next we have is emergency operations update. This is the emergency operations plan, continuity of operations plan, multi-hazard mitigation plan, and this is Dan Schoonmaker. Hi, Dan, how you doing?
I'm doing well, Mayor and Council. How are you?
Good.
Give me just a second here. And this one. Share screen. All right, so a little update for you tonight from emergency operations. Nothing says summertime like reading a whole bunch of 700 pages of emergency operations documentation that were in your council pack tonight. I just want to highlight a few of the things that are in those 3 documents. So let's talk about what they are first. So the emergency operation plan, or what we're going to refer to as Emergency Operations Center Manual, that is basically how we respond during an emergency, earthquakes, any other emergency that is deemed necessary to operate the EOC, or the Emergency Operations Center. So it is our playbook on disaster response. It also highlights how we're going to work with DEM and with other agencies that would be involved. Second plan, the Continuity of Operations Plan. That's a document we initially created in 2020 during the COVID response. And so this is an update to that plan that outlines how we're going to maintain essential city functions, especially in regarding if City Hall or another city facility was unable to be used. How do we maintain operations? Where do we move? What documentation gets migrated with us? And then the final one is a KCDEM document, the Multi-Hazard Mitigation Plan, that talks about the major disasters, either natural or man-made, that could affect the city, and steps that we can take to mitigate those plans. The one document that's not on here that we had hoped would be ready at the time is the Comprehensive Emergency Management Plan that is done by KCDEM, which is complete, but is still currently being waiting for approval by FEMA, which could take some time. Might take some time. So for our EOC in the past, our emergency operations plan has been part of the CEMP. So this is an update to what they had done in 2020 with a little bit of twist now that we have the position in place, the emergency management coordinator. That has been authored and updated from their plan, but internally here. So some of the things that we did in this plan is that are different than the last one. We've defined and added job descriptions on the positions that we feel will most likely be filled for the city of Poulsbo. There are a myriad of positions that can be filled, but we also have to look at our staff capacity and what we can actually fill here. Yes.
Dan, is the position of city administrator having a big impact or rearrangement in that respect? Didn't exist in 2020.
Correct. Yeah, that's one of the changes for sure, and that's was of course adopted into this before Mr. Gelder got here. The other thing we included, and some of these ideas are definitely stolen from other cities. One of the things I did was kind of an exhaustive search on other emergency operations center manuals, and took some good ideas out of them. So one of the things we really like is adding the outlines of the various meetings that need to occur during an emergency, who's invited to them, who attends them, what the outcomes are, what the action items are from those meetings. And then shout out to Rhiannon. Her and I had a conversation about a crisis communication plan that we've added as an annex to our EOCM that can be activated as part of a major emergency or just activated anytime we need it. It kind of defines the roles, it defines the roles of how we are going to communicate externally and internally during a crisis. And so that is something that's a new addition to the EOP. The second one, continuity of operations plan. Those updates, like I said, this is an update to the 2020. So we've added some additional cities facilities, the new public works area, the North Kitsap Recovery Center. We've changed some personnel because there's been a lot of personnel changes since 2020, and updated some secondary locations. And then very cool, shout out to Vibe Co-works. So for a tertiary location, if everything falls apart and we have nowhere else to go, I reached out to Vibe Co-works, which would be a great place for us to, if we had to, go somewhere. And there is an MOU or an agreement in your packet that talks about what that would look like if we have no other place to go, and to have that public-private partnership and an area declared specifically for the city.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. Dan, that brings to mind when the original no inept fiber. The BPA fiber was brought in from the airport in 2002, and the point of presence were created. KPUD was the driver on that. KPUD is developed where certain nodes, a truck or other, can back up to it, and using the electricity off that truck, reestablish linkage on fiber optic communication channels. Make sure to touch base with Angela Benning. When you mentioned Vibe Coworks, they're totally dependent on the KPUD fiber. We might want to actually talk to the source on that, and they have a redundancy plan to reestablish, even without general electricity, fiber optic communications.
Fantastic. And I know, just so there is continuity across the board, KCDM is also looking at our COOP to make sure it is consistent with probably a lot of those issues, but I will definitely follow up. Yeah.
I would think that eventually, or actually not eventually, probably pretty short order, we would have a satellite link of some sort. Wouldn't we have a Starlink or something like that?
And we're certainly looking to that, working with Brooks on that now, and
Yeah.
having that capability. It is something that is that DEM already has in place, and I know other local cities are. I know our fire department is looking at that as well.
Yeah, I thought they were looking at, Poulsbo Fire was looking at putting a link there.
Yeah, they sure are. And just probably obvious, but goes without saying, the MOU with Vibe Coworks is a no cost unless we have to use the facility. So there is a price to it if we have to use it. And then finally, just real briefly on the multi-hazard mitigation plan, this is a KCDEM product that that again is part of their overall county multi-hazard mitigation plan. The draft was sent to city staff to take a look at, and so we had input on that. It is an update to the last MHMP, and so that again updates key facilities, and then the only action required is for us to review and adopt. And there's a sample or there's a resolution in there with a cover letter from KCDM. So again, these are just updates. I do want to point out they are living documents. With this position in place, I will be taking a lot more frequent look at them. I can tell you, since I submitted the council packet, there's already been some personnel changes and some things that have happened that will require those updates. And those updates are in place. But for the most part, you're reviewing the content and the plan, and know that I have a reminder on my calendar every quarter to go back and review and update those documents as necessary. And then there's a formal adoption of those documents every 3 to 5 years, depending on which they are.
Okay, questions for Dan?
On FEMA, and you mentioned them early on, there was a big push by the federal government to devolve FEMA to a state level responsibility.
Correct.
So we'll want to stay flexible and keep on that, because that could have an outsized impact depending on how you're defining their role in a disaster. And then the second point would be, well, no, I forget the second point. I'll come back to.
Okay.
Oh, go ahead, Rick.
Yeah, you had talked about, reconstituting other locations in the multi-hazard plan. A few months back, there was a school district meeting Doug and I were both at, and there was a pretty solid misconception amongst some of the attendees that the schools were disaster relocation sites. We have a major earthquake or something, everyone's going to flood into the schools as the place to go. And it had to be kind of disputed of that those buildings are not built for that. So I don't know if that's something that's in our greater plan of, like evacuation centers kind of thing. But definitely there's some work educating the public on that needs to kind of happen. And it was surprised at how many people were just assuming where they would go rather than actually asking questions about it in that meeting.
And I think that certainly comes from a lot of images of gymnasiums turned into evacuation centers and with full of cots and things like that. And I mean, it's certainly an option. We don't currently have an agreement with North Kitsap School District to do that. Once, first step is once we get our, I don't want to say our house in order, but once we get these documents updated, is going out and reaching out to other places. I know I've talked with both Jeff and Kim in talking about evacuation centers and creating, a place where we could have dedicated centers that, also have multiple uses. The one thing I want to be careful in everything that we're doing is, emergencies are definitely a reality and they do happen. But for a city the size of Poulsbo and staffing and capacity concerns, everything we do should have multiple use, right? Finding someplace that is just a structure that is a dedicated evacuation center, or an EOC that is just a solely a dedicated EOC. We don't have that luxury here, so we do have to be creative in how we do things. But school district may be an option, but right now it is not. So.
Well, and I don't think they were offering it.
Right.
Because I think a lot of the buildings in the district were not built to the standards that we would want to be an evacuation center, particularly in an earthquake. Maybe something else lesser than that. But I was just shocked at how many people just assumed that they were, which tells me in a panic emergency situation where they're going to flood
Right.
and head to without asking first. And so, yeah, it's just, like I said, it's more of an education thing is what I'm thinking now of don't just assume and head to the school. That's not the place. And then just maybe from our standpoint, like you said, we can't build something dedicated. We're not big enough for that. But maybe even as we get into the public works facility conversation, we are about to build something fairly big, in that conversation. So, might be part of that conversation, push the tools to the side and set up cots. I don't know.
I will let Diane and Mike address those comments.
What I'd like to do with this, where we are right now with these documents is, I have it up there, it's about that thick, and I haven't read it all, Dan. I apologize, but I just haven't. So what I'd like to do is just kind of bump this out for a month, give you guys a chance to really digest the documents and to figure out and read them and make sure that, ask the questions you need, and then we'll bring this back in about a month. Maybe workshop it again, or it'll be on the business agenda or whatever, but we're not going to do this next week. There's not enough time to really review the documents to move it that quickly. I hope that's okay. Is that okay with everybody? Yeah, go ahead.
So you heard earlier in our business agenda, Dan, Rob mentioning that we have 2 high-level meetings coming up with our neighboring jurisdictions, City of Bainbridge Island, elected to elected, and then with the tribal council, all at the end of July. I know you're in touch with technical staff for those jurisdictions. Is there anything you would like brought up? You can give it some thought, let Rob know on that high elected to elected level, as far as that level of coordination and understanding.
For sure. Yeah, I'll keep that in mind. I've been fortunate making really good connections both at Bainbridge Prepares, KCDEM, and some other jurisdictions. They're going to be great partners. There seems to be, and maybe it's because this is my focus now, but there seems to be much more concerted effort in the county to get everybody up to speed, and that interactivity working very well. So,
especially in the case of the tribe, with all due respect to Agate Passage Bridge, they're just less than a mile. We
Right.
share the common border virtually, that have a deep understanding with each other, because we'd find ourselves alone together.
That is
the
for
the ones that really saved our bacon during the pandemic was Bainbridge Preparers. If it hadn't been for Bainbridge Preparers and their testing and they somehow got supplies of vaccinations before anyone. Everybody from Poulsbo and the North Wind was headed over to Bainbridge Island. And what we did on our side is we set up phone banks for people to help them register for both their testings and then their vaccinations. Kim, you remember all of that vividly. They were remarkable what they did over there with regards to the pandemic. And I'd like to look at them as a model of the direction we should be headed. They do really good stuff. Okay, so is there any other questions for Dan tonight? So we read this, we get you back here in about a month, and then we have a pretty good discussion about what the documents say.
Of course, and if there's any questions I can answer in the meantime, I'm available for you.
All right.
Mayor, could I make
I know where I'm at, so I'm not going to.
quick comment?
Go ahead, Kim.
Somebody want to be elected.
Go ahead, Kim.
Thanks, council. I just wanted to make council aware that Dan's been coming over to the Recovery Resource Center on a regular basis to help us through some safety exercises and tabletop exercises. Really appreciated by me, really appreciated by staff, just to have somebody here that can help us work through these issues and be better prepared. It's nothing we were able to do before, and I'm very grateful for the assistance. So thank you.
Well, I love the team effort over there, and they're it's great conversations every time we go over there. We learn something new every time. So
I do have a question for the mayor. Councilman McVeigh had to leave early, but I know he'd probably bring up, and so with respect to Councilman McVeigh, he continues to push and would like to see in a future budget a chief information officer, right? If that happens, that has a direct impact on the lineage of who, where, and when, and what, right?
Yeah.
Any thought thereof?
I'd love to have a PIO. I always wanted a PIO. Frankly, I want a code enforcement officer first. I mean, we don't have anybody to enforce our civil codes. And I mean, that's the first, if we're going to hire people, that would be number one on the list. We have the emergency manager now. That one, check. We got that one. I'm glad you're here, Dan. You know, but there's a couple of those kinds of positions that we desperately need. It's just a question of funding. Yeah. Okay. We'll see you in a month, if not before.
thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. The thing that we added was ADU impact fee and general facility charge discount to, and this is Michael Bateman. This is about our ADUs. What's going on with the ADUs? In all seriousness, I'd like to run around right now and take pictures of all the illegal signs all over the city. They're everywhere. Have you noticed? All of a sudden, they're just all kinds of stuff all over. It drives me crazy.
What's that? Jump in. Jump in. And hit presentation for me. There, thank you. Good evening, council and mayor and everyone else. To channel Andre, good news. I'm here to talk about impact fees. Everything's always good news from Andre, right? So we're here to talk about ADUs and how we're going to handle them from a impact fee and general facilities charge standpoint. As you know very well, planning has done a fantastic job of moving forward and adapting and bringing forward to you guys the code changes necessary to comply with everything that the state legislature has asked of us, and have done a great job of Poulsboizing everything and making it correct. We in engineering, public works, and building have now looked at those code changes and the what's going to be going on. You know, we encourage ADUs and this as a method of providing some middle housing. We also want to make sure that we're consistent with our financial planning for our utilities, and that any development that we encourage pays its own way. You know, we don't want the existing tax base to have to be paying the burden for infrastructure improvements needed to support development, right? That's kind of Poulsbo's way of doing business. Grandma shouldn't pay for things that have to happen for the developments to occur. So these recommendations that we're making are intended to balance those competing public needs and give the best result for the city in terms of housing affordability, and yet making sure that our utilities stay solvent, that our systems are not impacted out of line. We know that impact fees will be coming forward to you in a more detailed analysis from an overall standpoint in the near future. And I'm intending these changes to scale with those. One of the reasons we're going with percentages is to allow them to scale with any changes that are made in the future. So ADUs can be more complicated than you would think. There's a lot of options. They can be internal, they can be external, they can be attached, they can be detached. Now with the changes to the state law, they might be able to be sold. So we need to adapt to these in light of the new changes. Previously, we had 800 square feet, had to be in, owners had to occupy, you know, a lot of rules. So the legislature has told us that we're not allowed to charge any more than half of impact fees. And we think that's appropriate, actually. Half of impact fees for these smaller homes, they are going to be small homes with families, you know, for the most part, and not all, but yeah, it's not the same as it was before. It's not going to be, you know, you're converting a corner of your garage for grandma to live in as you're taking care of her. That will happen, but it's going to be more predominantly working on our housing. So we're proposing, and then as most of these will probably, most ADUs will probably be able to be served off of the primary unit's water service, assuming that the primary unit is not a massive house. Typical house has about 20 fixtures. Typical water meter sizing, feed sizing, and water pressure would allow up to about 33 or 35 fixtures. So there's enough room in there for a small ADU to still be on the primary water service, assuming that this isn't something they're going to sell. If you're going to sell it, it has to have its own service. So there's a whole lot of different configurations that can happen with water. And we're proposing, if it does connect to water and sewer, we're proposing appropriate charges for general facility charges for those utilities to keep our utilities nice and solvent. And same for parks that we're proposing a half.
One thing that strikes me, we're very supportive of the ADUs. We help develop them for all the jurisdictions here through KRCC. But whether it's 600 square feet or 700 or 800 square feet, in fact, the water and solid waste and stormwater and all of that will still be the same as, you know, 1,000 or 1,500 or even 2,000 square foot house.
Yeah.
And yet we want to be encouraging of this middle housing solution.
Right.
I assume you guys have adequately agonized over that equation.
That's what we're talking about right now, is looking at what those fees should be.
Yeah.
Okay.
And agonized is right. We have gone, I have changed my mind at least 3 times on how I think this should go as time has gone on. So,
So looking at this, and I was looking at your slide with your breakdown of internal, external, specifically with the water and sewer. I understand external water, sewer, we're adding a residence and you're saying, yes, we should charge additional. You're recommending that if it's internal, we don't. But I'm thinking, maybe you're going to cover this, so I'm just ahead, but
You let him get through a little more of his presentation first.
well, because I'm looking at the image and that's what's drawing the question. The basement conversion in the above garage apartment.
So most all of the internals will be able to be served from the primary water service and sewer, and will not need to have its own connection. They will still be able to be flowing through that existing water meter.
You're saying that is based on the capacity to provide to the residents.
Yeah, the 3/4 meters ability to provide water.
Okay.
And then the sewer capacity.
What I'm going to ask is that, but we're now using more. And we're essentially adding more residents to the residents.
That's true. Yeah.
And using more of the utility, but we're suggesting not charging that residence for these additional residents.
So we look at water and sewer in terms of ERUs, equivalent residential units. That 3/4 inch water meter, the 3/4 by 5/8 that's the single family has already paid for, the general facilities charges associated with that. That's a 1 ERU, and that house itself, without an ADU, could have a ton of people in it. They could be using a lot of water right now, right? They don't have to. It also could be one person in it using a small amount of water. Those all pay the same 1 ERU going in. The ADUs, if it's served off the same water meter, it's appropriate to not have any additional charges because we're not changing. Now, if it turns out that house has a lot of fixtures, the ADU adds enough fixtures to need to bump the meter up to a 1 inch meter, that will be paying the appropriate general facility charge.
We're treating, say, the above garage apartment the same as if they just decided to put an addition on above the garage.
Yeah.
Not necessarily as an ADU.
The general facilities charges for water and sewer are really attached to the water meter itself. And so if you don't need to make a change to the water meter, you don't owe any more. If you do need to make a change to the water meter, or you have to add a new water meter, then you have to pay. And that's consistent with our financial planning in our utilities.
That would be a really big house for a 1 inch meter.
Yeah. Well, yes. Oh, we will have houses with 1 inch meters, but only because they're going to have flow through fire sprinklers. But yeah, you're correct. A 1 inch water meter flows a lot of water.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So what our proposal is going to be that the transportation and park impact fees are discounted 50% from what would have been charged the primary unit, consistent with what the state legislature has offered to us. The stormwater general facilities charge is only going to be if you're building an external unit, right? The ones that are internal aren't adding any impervious surface to the lot. But if you're building an external one, you're adding impervious surface.
If somebody builds a garage on their property today, do we charge a stormwater fee?
We look at it, and if they exceed the 3,000 square foot, 1 ER, 1 ISU, impervious surface unit. So if it kicks them over into the next one, yes, they would pay on that building permit for the additional ISU.
So you know what my next question is then.
Go ahead.
No, well, to apply the same reasoning.
Yes.
To an ADU.
Yes, but remember, we're expecting these ADUs to be small, right? The maximum size an ADU can be, any one single one is 1,000 square feet. So its impact is going to be potentially, on average, it's going to be less than most other houses. So
I just was from the standpoint of, if it doesn't kick me over the 3,000, do I need to pay for it? That was my thing.
That is also, yes, that's one of the many things we agonized over as well.
So if I build
there's
500 or 450 square foot garage,
yes,
I have to trip the 3,000 impervious to kick me in.
Yeah.
But if it was a 450 square foot ADU, then I'm paying the 50%.
Right. Yeah, I mean that's a valid question.
If I don't.
It is a complication that could be added if council chose. Yeah.
This stuff we're talking about, this is a lot of.
Yeah.
No,
this kind of stuff.
absolutely understand that. I'm just was trying to get to the agony that they've
Mhm.
already gone through in this standpoint, because
There's a lot of.
And
at the end of the day, this is not physics. This is man-made rules to try to apportion costs fairly.
Yeah.
It's exactly right.
That's exactly right. And we have, you're right, that's one of the many pieces we agonized over a lot. But we feel that this is the appropriate way to handle it on the averaging out sometimes you're making the best choice of a whole lot of bad choices, right?
If I may, Mayor, following up on Councilman Newell, is there a trigger where if we were to really subsidize or discount a service, it would end up being a gift of public funds on behalf of the ratepayers on who owe and owns the enterprise?
Yeah. What it would potentially do then is in your next comprehensive plan update for that utility, you would have to look at your future infrastructure needs and your balance of income and where it's coming from. And you may need to increase your rates accordingly to put the burden on the existing ratepayers.
Wow.
So that's what we're trying to avoid by doing this is rate, the need to raise rates. Right. The water and sewer general facilities charge, we feel like that the most equivalent type of structure is the same as duplex, triplex, quadplex that we already have a discount factor for. We discount our ERU at 0.85 for a duplex, triplex, 0.8 for an apartment. We feel like that the 0.85 is an appropriate discount factor for EDUs for the general facilities charges when you're adding a water meter or upsizing a water meter.
So we're looking at individual footprints per the earlier chart that was up that Rick referred to. There's that allowance for what's called a cottage court that was in the original KRCC planning. And again, if you would envision it, you'd have 4 adjoining with a horseshoe 4 connected, right? So you have the U. Does that change the dynamic in terms of coverage or are we still dealing with 12 individual units that are now aggregated?
I would say we'd look at that on a case-by-case basis and see how it best fits within our codes and standards. Are they going to be individually owned units is one of the questions. That requires an individual water meter for each one. You go through the
intention would be small equity.
Yeah. And that's one of the reasons why our duplex, triplex, quadplex has a discount over a single family home. Which you guys have previously vetted, of course.
Sorry, just kind of going where Rick was a minute ago, back to the transportation and park impact fees. You talked about the 50%. If they're internal, we're going to charge 50%. And so that would be triggered if somebody pulled a building permit to make that, or is it an application of the ADU?
This would be specific to ADU applications.
So that would be new.
New ADU.
Okay. I mean, that would be a new fee because up till now, if you applied for an ADU permit into an existing structure, you didn't pay these fees.
Correct. Well, in our previous code, the analysis that was made at the time determined that ADUs were going to be primarily family units, primarily internal for the most part, only up to 800 square feet maximum, only one maximum owner had to occupy the primary unit. There was a lot of endpoints on it that made where it was not going to be significant enough to need to worry about. It was and that's consistent with what we have. We have in the whole history of Poulsbo, we have 16 permitted ADUs. Yeah,
I have one.
Yeah.
So two of them are here at the table.
Yeah. So it has been to date, it has been truly de minimis.
Permitted because we don't have a code enforcer out there catching the ones that aren't permitted.
I would go there, but I've already said it.
Yeah, but
Okay.
you know,
That's why I said it for you.
Or
Well-
because they didn't meet the qualifications.
On doors like
Yes.
who lives there?
I have a little, no, I have some, but I have some perspective myself because I built a garage and
Yeah,
put
yeah.
space above and I
Right.
built, it's not technically an ADU. It doesn't meet the
Right.
current
Full
unless,
kitchen, right.
right.
yeah, right. Yeah.
So,
But we know that these are not going to be de minimis anymore.
so again, from the standpoint of this is a conversation. This is at this standpoint, a proposal, your current thoughts
This is
for
our
us to consider. We could change them as part of this discussion. Okay, I
Absolutely.
just want to
Yep.
say that out loud.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
just want to make
this
sure
is-
we're
this is-
right in the process.
It's a staff
Okay.
recommendation to city council, and that's why we're discussing it here at workshop indeed. And that this is, well, as Andre would always say, we are but humble servants of city council's will, right? But we're providing what we think after a pretty extensive discussion analysis is the right way to go. It combined with this, in addition to the impact fees, the general facilities charge. Now we're going to talk plan and permit review fee for the permit ready system. And that Heather and has led and is just brilliant. And we are recommending that for those, we reduce the building permit review fee by 50%. Our engineering fee, we'd like to reduce from 3 hours to 1 hour. And we think that's appropriate for a review of these plan sets. That is consistent with all the jurisdictions around us. In fact, all of this is consistent with jurisdictions around us. Yeah, there's a mix, of course, around us in whether they have impact fees at all, which impact fees they have, but pretty consistently, they're either currently charging about half or they're in process to make the changes to adapt to it. Pretty much everybody, with the exception of Port Orchard, is 50% on the building permit review fee for the permit ready plan sets. Port Orchard had already had a standard stock plan set in place before the ADUs, and they already had their charge set at $225 for that review, so they're continuing that with the ADUs. But polling all the jurisdictions around us, this is consistent.
Yeah, I'm good with that. I'd like to go back to the utility impact for just a moment with respect to Mr. Newell's question that we can workshop this as a council because it's a policy we're actually working on, not a code.
Well, the policy will then drive the code change that we're
Exactly.
proposing. Yeah, and if you're happy with the policy, the code change can go forward as written. If you want to make changes, we'll adjust the code accordingly. And I forgot to mention going in that of course we have run all of this through the city attorney's office.
So then there are some things in the RCW, like you mentioned earlier, that the maximum we could charge for some of these is 50%.
That's correct. Yeah.
So we could charge
Or-
less, but we couldn't charge more for those two that you outlined.
That's correct. So for
Oh,
impact
gosh.
fees,
Okay.
impact fees are
What
capped
is
at
much?
50% of what would be for the primary unit. So if we change the primary unit, the fact that we're charging this at 50% then scales with it as it goes up and down.
So I want to clarify again in respect to Mr. Newell's remark, and also turn to Diane and Josh out in the audience, in addition to you, Michael, and that is, if the council determined it was in the public benefit, which we have some leeway with, to do a minimal impact fee in order to encourage this middle housing solution, specifically too for equity for working families, young people to get started in life, we could actually spread the true, I'm going to be careful here, the cost of that impact on the utility among the larger rate base.
You could.
We have the authority to do so.
That is correct. That is your policy decision to make.
I'm looking for a head nod.
So effectively, you could incent people to build these by spreading the cost over the entire rate base.
That's an amazing thought. Diane or Josh, any reaction?
For those who haven't seen the next slide with the table, I think that was part of our goal. So I, to be fair and to show a significant decrease in cost. So if we just look at this table that Michael put up there, you can see that a normal single family home would be $30,000 in fees. An internal ADU is $3,300. External ADU difference is just stormwater. It's about $4,200. And then you can see what happens if the owner wants to sell that ADU at a later date and they want to plan ahead for that, or if it's sized such that they need separate utilities, then the fee is almost $23,000, which is closer to the 30. So I think this gives you a place to look at, to consider
This is
the policy decision.
Yeah. And Diane was a huge part of it, as was Rob and Josh, of course, in the discussion and thinking about the best way to go. And, you know, we know that the need for external utilities is not going to be very common. It's only going to be one, if you build two 1,000 square foot ADUs, you're not going to be on that one water meter, right? If your house is massive and you've already used up your fixture count, you're going to need an addition, you're going to need to upsize your water meter. If you want to sell your ADU as a single family home, you're going to need your own water meter. That's a requirement in our code, right? So, but those are not going to be the normal situation, right? We're not, that's not what we would expect to be, and who knows, right? But those then, if you need that service, you should be paying appropriately.
Yeah.
So if I could add to the agony of this exercise, and that is to envision a cottage court under the liberalized condo liability laws that we just got out of the last legislature. You heard Mr. Newell at the beginning of the full business agenda talk about public-private partnerships, wondering what they might look like if feasible at all, right? So picture a cottage court, taking it to 12 units, which is the max allowable for condo. And those are now bought. 600, 800, 900 square feet, but get people started with equity so they can get ahead, so they can be a real member of the community, not just renting in terms of the American dream. I mean,
right.
So we're building these 12 unit horseshoes so that there's also sense of community and cross for childcare. Who knows what they could come up with in a small community? What might that look like to encourage that?
Well, I would say that we would then bring to workshop code changes and appropriate mitigation forward for your consideration for those items at the time. You know,
Now, these are just the.
this is just ADU. You'll see me again for unit lot. We'll be back here, and
Multifamily's got a different rate table.
Multifamily is a different rate table. Indeed.
Yeah, so I think we've got some lead.
Yeah,
Yeah, we've got
yeah.
some.
Yeah, it all scales.
This is just the impacts and general facilities charges. This isn't our fee structure.
Right.
Okay, so.
Impact fees and
ADU
general facilities.
external, okay. that 4,200, well, you're going to have fees on top of that for processing, correct? Okay.
Yeah. On a single family home, that $30,000 impact fee, you'd probably end up around $40,000 total. You'd have another 10,000 in permit fees. On the ADUs, it will scale appropriately as they're smaller. But yeah, so this is purely impact fee and general facility charges we're looking at.
Okay, go ahead.
I think what we should probably steer towards, and I don't know what the number at remotely should be, is whatever level we need to be respectful of our utility ratepayers, because we have that obligation, that we do not cause a deficit. So the minimum amount to keep that solvent, and then what pays for staff time, because we don't want to incur costs in the city that that's where the gift, I feel, kind of comes in. And after that, it should be a minimal, because we adopted a comp plan that says we want to encourage, and this is the best way to infill a lot of the existing development. So I think, other than maintaining the rates for solvency and maintaining the city staff time for a positive cash flow, a balance there, after that, I think we should shoot for the minimum impact possible. So we encourage this kind of building.
So Mayor, you're often talking about land is the most competitive thing, because we're only 4 3/4 square miles. We have critical areas, we have ravines, we have setbacks and all that. So using the hypothetical of a cottage court of 4, 4, and 4, a horseshoe, does it make more sense to stack 2 on top of each other?
The cottage, that horseshoe thing is really romantic, but if you really are looking for affordability, you go straight box up. Okay.
Straight box up, 2 levels?
Cheaper to build it.
Or 7.
Or 7 or whatever, but yeah.
Because land is so desirable and so tight in Poulsbo.
If you know where my house is, if I took the 2-story unit that Heather presented,
Yeah.
I could put that on the back of my property easy, with or without utilities. I mean, I basically have a section that is almost, the neighbor almost has a house on it now, and it's just empty. And I could easily put the 2-story, it'd be 1,000 square foot ADU. The only thing it doesn't have is access to the street for a car. They'd have to park in my existing driveway, but there's no room in my neighborhood to do that. But there's to infill.
Land for what?
Yeah, infill units. And behind me is Rob Park, so I'm not affecting anybody's view. So I could go up easy.
Doug, Doug's next. Go ahead. Doug, go ahead. Okay.
If we could make another, just sorry, I don't want to go into this, but if we could no, I don't want to open this can of worms.
Okay. He's not going to say anything. Go ahead.
Compromise is in a more traditional condominium, and that's not what we're talking about here, but that's where you could take a small bit of land and try to maximize it within that 12 unit, or less condo style. I mean, we don't, like they've said, we don't have the land for the romantic cottage style.
No, but we are doing basically the townhomes now. What do they call? I'm sorry, Heather's not here.
Condo light, right?
The unit lot.
Yeah.
Yes.
And which is basically row houses. We are doing those now. There's one being built right up in College Marketplace by the Perk.
64 units, I want to say.
64 units,
Yeah, and those are built as townhomes, four vertical units, 2 stories. So each townhome is a 2-story unit attached.
Square foot, typically square footage.
I want something like that. Yeah, and these were originally permitted as apartments, and they're now that they went through the process to get approved as unit lot subdivision. Once the unit lot code was adopted, that project was spearheaded by the Laughlands to begin with. It's now currently under construction right now.
Yeah.
So we have some middle housing going in on the codes that you guys have adopted fairly recently.
Okay, Michael, is this the last one?
Go ahead. Yeah, just that you guys have this in your packet, and whether there's any questions. And I want to thank you guys for allowing this to come forward to this meeting, since the next one got canceled, it felt like that this was a timely enough,
Oh, yeah.
timely. We now have two current applications in right now
Do we
for
really?
ADUs, two. For roughly 1,000 square foot ADUs. And we have at least 3 inquiries that I've seen. In addition to that, all 3 appear to be probably viable. So that's 5 new ADUs, just bam, like that. So, you know, it's clear to us as staff that these are not de minimis anymore. They have impacts. We do need to account for that. And what we're bringing forward to you is what we feel as staff is the right balance between encouraging affordability and not affecting our utilities. But as you say, that this is your venue to decide what you think is the right.
Okay, so next steps on this will come to the council for, as a code changes.
We're currently on the agenda for the 16th, on business agenda for the 16th, to come forward with what we have presented in code changes. So if you guys feel like we're making the right choice here, for at least for now, you know, all this stuff, it can be changed anytime we want, but we feel like for now, this is the right place to start. And if that's what you want to do, then the motion is there to move this to business agenda and go forward.
First, I appreciate the work the staff put into finding these, balancing of these fees and impact. Second, would this be the appropriate time to also look at other aspects of ADU, like setbacks and density?
Not this. This is fee based.
Fees only.
Yeah, fees only.
Great.
Yeah. So other ADU discussion would be with Heather in the planning department for setbacks and all that stuff. Yeah.
All right, go ahead. Go ahead.
I just an overarching remark, Mayor, for anyone listening, there can't be that many. This is such a wonky discussion. That what we're discussing here, in effect, is trying to accommodate additional housing. This is not, to the audience that's listening beyond this room, some grab at additional money, or we're interested in sheer growth because, after all, we're greedy city folks. No, it's not true. And the alternative is, if we don't pursue these type of discussions, as the mayor knows, twice the legislature in session has threatened to preempt the cities and remove our zoning codes and dictate to the cities what we shall or shall not do. So this is an effort at trying to retain local authority while meeting state goals, if not mandates, to accommodate this additional housing. And that's such an important point. So if this sounds wonky and nerdish, understand that this is the essence of what we need to do as a council and a mayor.
Good presentation, Michael. Thank you. And and thank you for doing it so promptly. I know I sent an email a couple days ago saying, what are we doing here? And how's this going to work? So thank you. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. That is the last thing on our workshop. The next is continued public comment.
I would say,
Yeah, go ahead.
do you guys think this is the correct thing to move forward and
Yes.
move forward to business agenda? Then there's your motion.
There you go. That's perfect. We don't take motion here. It'll come back.
Okay. So we'll move to the business agenda and we will.
Business agenda. Yeah, we don't do any decision making here. And then what that does is, Michael, it gives the council time to ask any further questions before it hits. So,
Yes. Perfect.
all right. Thank you very much. So
Appreciate your time. Thank you. Good to see you all.
Go ahead, Diane.
You turned the mic off.
She turned it off. Okay. Now we're moving on to continued public comment. If you have comment for the council, what?
Are we the questions and concerns of council?
Yeah, I guess we have questions and concerns of the council, future agenda items. Any questions and concerns of the council?
Yes, because we state publicly for the record that the council meeting currently scheduled for July 9th is
Canceled.
apparently canceled.
My understanding, we were canceling. That's one of the reasons why we had so many.
I just want to say it out. I heard
Canceled.
I didn't.
whispers.
The city clerk over there is saying, would you go ahead and announce it,
The
Rhiannon?
meeting is officially canceled for next week. We moved some items to this meeting and we'll move some on the 16th
Yeah.
due to other ones that weren't ready. So we didn't have a full
Mr.
agenda.
Tabor
for
can
next
get
week.
some sleep.
Okay.
And I'll put.
It's a
send
great
them a
thing
note.
for no future further agenda comments. items. There's no agenda for next week.
Okay.
Got it.
All right. Any other questions and concerns? Go ahead.
So again, so I don't belabor it at the dais and the business agenda, if the mayor and staff could give some thought, what might you recommend as a proper formatting, this study session, a workshop, an ad hoc committee to look at this July 4th event and the nexus to the advisory vote in November. I see linkage, and maybe not everybody
We
agrees.
can't, we're not supposed to influence that advisory.
No, but I'm talking about a July 4 event. How might you give a thought, Mayor, to having a discussion of that in a more robust fashion among the council? Would you like it at the business agenda, in a study session, an ad hoc committee of those who are interested?
So call me a newbie because I'm only 18 months in. The real newbie is Doug New, Doug Young.
Yeah,
Doug
Doug
Young.
Young.
I'm Doug Doug the Elder. I've got all of 18 months. Wouldn't something that would be honoring Independence Day on an annual basis be a local community committee
Is that us?
that would do it like our other events in town, and that they should be, that a group, if a group formed to have a conversation, that they would be working that, not city led?
Yes, but however,
What?
no one has come to fill in the gap in the last 5
So
years.
I guess
Maybe
that-
that's because they don't want it.
Oh, well, I know, but I don't think we should disregard what Ed's saying though, because if the vote is advisory, but if we want to move in the direction of less unregulated fireworks, are we really just offering nothing? Like no,
When
Kingston
does the
has something.
city put on an event? When do we do Viking Fest? Do we do any of them? Seriously, do we do any of them?
Not yet.
Well, so I
just wondered if it might be appropriate for those of us to reach out into our networks to go, is there some level
Yeah,
of
maybe it's opening
interest
dialogue
so that,
between
and that
ourselves
we
and other
collectively maybe in the next meeting go, hey, this group or that group, maybe we can get them together to start a conversation.
Yeah, that's fine. I mean, I would, that's what, if I were a city council person, that's what I would do, is to do that.
And just to note for the record, during my term chairing LTAC, we did receive a tentative suggestion. I think it was the Historical Society looking to put on a July 4 event, but it didn't gain any traction because there was uncertainty for guidance from the city, whether that would be welcome or not.
Guys, you understand exactly what I'm saying here. Okay, this is not something we have normally. What other events are we going to do then? Are we going to do the Thanksgiving holidays, or maybe we put on the Christmas market, or you're going down a very slippery path. All of these have been done by outside agencies.
Yeah, but what Ed's saying is that we have to at least communicate an openness for others to do it. If there's a perception in the community that we don't want to, because in the past, the event was on July 3rd and it brought in 50,000 people that we couldn't control properly and it
Communicate
wasn't
it.
safe, then all the community has heard from us is no. And now we have to make an effort at maybe saying, yes, we want someone to do this professionally with the right
communicate it.
resources.
Okay, go ahead. I mean, this is your responsibility as council members. Okay, go do it. Did you have a
Okay, I'm
question?
going on the record, community. All interested parties in reviving a community 4th of July event, please come forward. Thank you.
Second.
Go ahead.
I was just gonna point out, July 3rd was run by a community group, Viking Fest Corporation, and they said it was too much to keep doing. Like, they're the ones that decided to stop doing it. So that's what we had, and it was just too much for them. So we're asking somebody new to form to do this. Which is fine. We just have to recognize that. I would go back to, we had a conversation with Squamish about a multicultural event, which they seemed very enthusiastic about doing, but not in the city. It was on their land, not ours. So, again, I think we need to have that conversation with them again before we really talk too much. And then when Britt first brought up about HTPA and the flower pots, we subdivided that conversation into an immediate, where are we going with the flowers, and what do we want the future of downtown to be, and the future of HTPA. I think having what events should the city sponsor and run versus an organization is a great other aspect of that retreat or conversation. Because if the city wants to sponsor events that then HTPA helps run in their downtown, something like that, that's part of the what do we expect from them, what do they expect from us conversation that we said we're already going to have.
All right, I guess to be continued? Right, okay. Okay, the next thing is any other questions and concerns of the council? Okay, seeing none. Okay, continued public comment. If you have comments for the council, please step to the podium. You have 3 minutes. Anyone? Seeing none. Mayor and council comments. Any more council comments?
I was just going to share. So one of our keynote speakers at the conference was Kate O'Neill. And I happened to win the her book in the drawing, which is going to take me forever to get to the top of my stack to read. But once I do, I will probably bring it in and leave it up on our desk upstairs. And so if anybody else wants to read it, she was very interesting. She talked about not using the term future proof because you can't proof against the future. It's always coming. And so I'm really interested to see what her expanded comments are. So.
Okay, go ahead.
One more quick comment. And the reason why I support the idea of a local community event is that when these big holidays come around, I don't want to get in my car and drive anywhere late at night. It feels unsafe. So on that note, please everyone be really safe this weekend.
Thank you. That's a very appropriate comment. Okay, we have an executive session in the second floor conference room. 15 minutes?
15 minutes, which would place us at 7:51.
So we will be adjourning from the executive session at 7:51.
And no action will be taken.
Second. All in favor, say aye.